Morning, Ralph. Morning, Sam.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Morning Sam, Morning Ralph. This is the podcast for restaurant technology professionals. And today I am joined by one of my closest, oldest friends. And it's not often where you can say one of your closest, oldest friends is also like your mentor. So this is kind of a little bit surreal for me. I want everybody to welcome Patrick Reynolds. He is the CMO of BlueConic, a leading platform helping brands unlock the full potential of their customer data. Welcome to the show, Patrick.
I am honored to be here. I'm a big, longtime fan of the show, first time guest. I had no idea I had achieved mentorship level for you, so I'm really excited to leverage that the next time we're out. But
I'm sure you will. You know what? You will buy me a drink for that, for saying that publicly.
Truly.
So it's awesome having you here because, I've been trying to figure out a way in which we could work together as marketers for, 20 years now, since we worked together a million years ago in consumer electronics. And this seems to be the perfect platform for us to have a conversation and a philosophical conversation as well about customer data. I mean, this is a big topic. Tell me, tell us a little bit about what a CDP is and what you guys do at BlueConic.
Yeah, so a customer data platform, strictly defined, is a piece of technology that allows you to gather first-party customer data and to organize it by segment or any kind of structure that you want to, in addition to unifying it to a single customer profile. So customers engage, especially in the quick service restaurant industry, they engage in app, they engage online, and of course they engage in store. This allows you to thread all those breadcrumbs together into a singular profile, which you can then activate across your marketing channels, either to those same customers or to acquire customers that look quite like them.
So, in other words, you're collecting data to kind of create like a profile of a customer.
Exactly. So, the restaurant industry is awash with data that they're collecting at all times. The problem is that data tends to live in different silos in the org. So, what a customer data platform does is it harmonizes all that information and it creates single profiles for each customer. So that could be, you may know me as Buffalo Reynolds at Gmail. You may know me by Patrick.Reynolds at BlueConic.com. You may know me by my mobile. You may know me by the guy with really good hair that comes into the restaurant, for coffee every morning, etc.
That's me.
Oh,
yeah, obviously.
Steal my thunder, mentor my ass. Anyways, this allows you to put rules in place where you can say all those are actually Paul. Right. And on the basis of what Paul has done historically, so it's kept too, it's housed, it's not ephemeral, it's housed. On the basis of what Paul has done historically, how he's engaging right now, he is in store, he just opened the app, whatever, it allows the marketer. And as a quick aside, CDPs are owned and operated by marketing, not IT, almost exclusively. So it allows the marketer to say, on the basis of what Paul has done, what Paul is doing, I should therefore engage Paul in the following way. Give him an offer, make him provide content for him, provide product recommendation, feed him a survey, give him bonus award of loyalty points, for example, et cetera, on the basis of his lifetime value, what we've determined his next best action should be, and so on and so forth.
Wow. So, and it's doing this, it's in some ways, just to dumb it down for me, in some ways, this is kind of like a trigger, right? So based upon all of these different variables that may have happened in the past or may be happening in real time, something is then generated to speak to me individually with like you said, like an offer or some kind of call to action.
Yeah, exactly. So there's two primary use cases, especially in QSR. The first is We want to run scheduled campaigns to different segments by region, segments by historical buying propensity, any kind of segments that you want. People have, people could be by day part, could be by week part, could be by demo, could be by gender, et cetera, et cetera. So let's say that you want to run your big Shamrock Shake thing. That's a thing that you can schedule for certain segments that are predisposed to want to get that, right? So that's scheduled stuff, but it's segments, and all that can live inside of the CDP. So the CDP then says, on this date, trigger your Salesforce Marketing Cloud to engage customers sort of, one to many, not one to all, but one to many. At the same time, though, so that's planned or scheduled campaigns. The other use case is the one that you mentioned, Paul, which is triggered things. Sometimes one individual who may be a high net worth or a high customer lifetime value person does a thing, and you're like, we have to do something about this right now for that one dude. That's the CDP tells you that they are engaging. This is what the recommended next best action would be, and orchestrates that engagement across channels.
Wow. So this is some really powerful stuff. And like, one of the things that's, how do I say, one of the things that is always concerning, of course, about customer data, is that, this is customers' data. So what's the opt-in like? And are there cookies involved? And like, how does?
Yeah, so that is a real concern, and so my recommendation to anybody thinking about engaging in this is to really make sure that you have a really compliant vendor of choice that really has privacy front and center of the operation. In the case of BlueConic, our origin story is in the Netherlands, which has among the most restrictive privacy laws, and so privacy has always been job one for everything that we do. And there are many other vendors who are highly compliant too. And there's some that are maybe a little loosey goosey. So I just, that's really, really critical to your point. But the thing about the customer data platform is that generally, occasionally people will append third-party data to a profile. More and more, though, we're seeing people are really, living on the first-party data they're able to capture. And what's cool about QSRs in particular is generally CDPs come closely aligned with loyalty programs.
Yeah.
And what that means is the customer actually wants you to have their data. They want you to know they made a purchase. They want you to know how many times they came. They want you to know that they took the survey. They want you to know, they want you to know, they want you to know, so they can get the status points, tiers, whatever the case may be. So it's a beautiful marriage in the QSR restaurant. It's kind of like burgers and fries, where if you have really robust CDP capabilities and a really strong, intelligent loyalty program, and I'm not talking about punch card loyalty, I'm talking about really intelligent laddering people up the value chain. It's a great marriage that can really drive business.
It sounds like an amazing fit, frankly, and particularly in the QSR space where we're talking. Starbucks had something, 37 million loyalty. It could even be more than that now. And, your typical McDonald's, I think, over 40% of their sales now is being driven by digital. Tell me a little bit about how BlueConic is helping. Can you give any examples, Patrick, for how a CDP is helping a QSR brand now today?
Well, I don't want to sort of choose any first among equals, so I won't get into very, very specific examples. I passed along some examples that you can share in the show notes. I will say, though, that I think the evolution of the space is a little bit less about the customer data platform strictly defined, and a little bit more about what we think of at BlueConic as a customer data operating system. The best example that I could give you, the way that we think about it anyways, is kind of like going towards like green energy. For a long time, all marketers, but including QSRs and the restaurant industry, relied on cookies,
right?
To that they bought in a marketplace, and they were gathered through sometimes nefarious means, sort of creepy, stalkery kind of things, right? Which consumers are roundly rejecting increasingly, by the way, your point about privacy earlier. So rather than doing that, we bought a company called Jebbit just about 4 months ago, 5 months ago, something like that. It feels like an eternity, and it feels like yesterday at the same time. What Jebbit does is really the secret sauce to our recipe, which is they allow the marketer to design experiences that both surprise and delight the consumer, but also gather first-party data. So here's an example you might say of A&W, which, by the way, is an amazing late-night burger option if you happen to be in cold places, predominantly Canada in particular. I mean, A&W in Montreal is the In-N-Out burger of Los
Oh
Angeles.
yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely legendary up there. But it allows you to do fun things like take a quiz, and you can provide a discount or an offer to the consumer. But in doing so, you're able to gather first-party data. That could be initial data, like give us your email, we'll send you a coupon. Or it could be, I know who you are, but I want to find out a little bit more about what makes you tick. What are the occasions that you favor? What SKUs are you super happy to buy? How many people do you come with? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Rather than doing that in a really cold, flat, sort of straight survey way, it just makes it fun to gather the same information as you would at tremendous scale with tremendous ease. And then, Paul, what's the magic happens when you then take that data and append it to the existing customer data profile. Now I know so much more about you, so much more about maybe the heart marks that you have for us, and I can sort of plan accordingly.
Wow. I am first of all, I am absolutely brutal with my A&W knowledge, by the way.
Yeah, it's
But
hugely
right now, but,
disappointing. I
but
hope
right
this
now
gets
you're
edited because
collecting. Yeah, that this is really great. Cool stuff. We'll have a couple of other examples of
yeah,
while we show, because I want to talk a little bit about BlueConic's recent purchase of Jebbit as well, and what these guys are doing. Another Boston company. Awesome
they are.
company.
Yeah.
All right. So how does a restaurant even implement a CDP? Do you need are you talking to loyalty programs? Are you dialing in with their CRM? I mean, where's a CDP fit in the technology stack?
Yeah, so it is actually sort of like the hub, and then you have surrounding technologies in the stack that are the sort of the spokes. So
Hmm.
you may have an SMS provider, you may have an email provider, you may have a web personalization provider, et cetera, et cetera. That's all awesome. We play great with everybody. Being tech agnostic is something we believe really strongly about. So we tend to get along technically and in all other ways with pretty much everybody. Uh, the CDP, though, is sort of informs what, when, and how those other technologies engage. So it
Okay.
will tell you you should engage with this segment or this individual. This would be a good message or a next best action. This might be the right offer to drive the outcome that you're looking for, et cetera, et cetera. And then again, because it is so closely affiliated with loyalty, typically you get that data back. They did convert, they did spend, this is what the basket contents were, et cetera, et cetera. And it becomes a virtuous cycle, Paul, where now the next transaction is even smarter than the last, or the next engagement is builds on the last and is smarter and smarter and smarter and smarter and smarter. And I think the ultimate expression of this, and I won't, I will name a name here. Starbucks, I sometimes wonder if Starbucks knows more about me, particularly when I was commuting,
Yeah.
than my family. It kind of knew like the time I would get off, my commute, the time I would be approaching the office. Do you want, the same order that you got the last 200 days consecutive? Like, or do you want to add something today? Do you want to twist? So it's not just rote. It almost would say like this maybe is going a little stale. Like let's interject an offer in here. Let's see if we can move him onto a different product or a different SKU or a different combo or something like that. But I would tell it all that I knew. I would have frictionless payment.
Right.
I just go and I would pick it up, and it would just be as easy as anything I could ever hope to do. So I would say that they're a really good model of understanding the customer, what they have done, what they are doing in the moment they're approaching the location, and then making a recommendation for what they should do next. You should
Yeah,
get.
I love that, because I think in the technology space in particular, it's all about being seamless. It's all about, frankly, being invisible.
Yeah.
Right? Like the best restaurant technologies are the ones that you don't notice, the one that the customer never sees. It's just all bundled into the overarching experience,
Well,
right?
the
And
Q
so,
in QSR is quick, and the more seamless and frictionless you can be, the quicker the transaction is, or the experience.
yeah, absolutely. And I couple of interesting ideas here. Well, with CDP in particular, yeah, listen, we're CDP, yet another acronym, the alphabet soup of marketing,
Yeah.
the alphabet soup of data, I guess in general. What the hell is the difference, Patrick, between a CDP and a DMP and a CRM? You know,
Yeah, I mean,
for the
so
layperson out there, I mean, why do I need a CDP versus a CRM versus a DMP?
so again, the DMP and CRM would be two examples of technologies that may get fed data on customers from your customer data profile.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So CRM might be used to email your customers newsletters or weekly offers or whatever the case is, right? To understand which segments get what, that would be informed by your customer data platform, so that you're not providing offers to people that don't need offers to act. You're not putting ham sandwiches in front of vegetarians, et cetera, et cetera. So it's segmenting things intelligently and dynamically, by the way. So if you did this last time, that gets appended to the profile, and maybe you're in a new segment now. And in the case of DMP, that's just a tool that is used to go find people who are likely to be acquired by you. And it's almost like the opposite of CRM, right? CRM is how do I engage my current customer base, and DMP is how do I find more customers. In both cases, both of those technologies are greatly enhanced through connectivity to a CDP.
Right. So the CDP almost acts as sort of like this central processor
Exactly.
for taking the CRM is utilized as a conduit, maybe
Correct.
to communicate.
Yeah.
A DMP is kind of like a scout that's going out there to find customers.
Non-customers. Yep.
And your CDP is the brains behind the operation, which in many cases is prescribing what an offer might be or what a next
Or what
action.
an ICP is, right? So in a DMP, if you feed it your profiles from your, and again, you brought up a really important point, which is we're such dipshits about how we talk technology. It's just maddening in the extreme. So your DMP is out looking for non-customers and trying to put your message in front of them to become customers, simplest terms, right?
Right.
The degree to which you inform what that profile looks like by exporting your best segments from your CDP makes that movement with your DMP much more effective, because they're not wasting time in areas that they shouldn't, or they know exactly who they're looking for, not sort of generally.
Yeah.
Helps.
And so the other components, so we have, let's just put this little mini stack together. Okay. We have the CDP, which is the brains.
Mm-hmm.
We have a CRM, which is your data conduit, or, to communicate.
Mm-hmm.
You have your DMP, which is, out searching and acquisition, so to speak.
Yep.
But then you have your loyalty program.
Yeah.
So the punches and the fish bowls, where are you interacting with them? Are they the app itself?
They can be, but typically are not. They're the ones that are sort of keeping score for what each customer has done. So they are the ones that are, keeping record of how many points Paul has. And the CDP, though, is often informing the loyalty platform with the most current transactional data, or it is, right, the way that the loyalty platform can be fed.
Okay. So that makes sense. That makes great sense to me. And so you start to understand the picture that's being painted around better understanding who your customers are and what they want.
Exactly it.
And I think that, you kind of nailed it with, how you said that, you as the consumer, as part of a loyalty program, let's say you're one of those people that utilizes the McDonald's app or the
Yep.
Starbucks app or the A&W app or whatever the app is, for ordering and loyalty points, Dunkin', et cetera, right?
Yep.
It's in your best interest as a consumer to feed it as, the best data that you can. So that way it gets to know you and starts to. So tell me then, how does BlueConic CDP prescribe offers? I mean, I know there's got to be some kind of magic, there's elves in a tree somewhere that are crunching the numbers and trying to figure out, what that next offer should be. How much is on the restaurant company to set those things up versus what you're doing to recommend?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the majority of what happens from a next best offer comes out of the strategy of the individual marketer at the individual restaurant company. We're just the tool by which they do that. We're the ones that give them the data that says, here's what we know about the customer base. Here's, we could use machine learning to say customers that typically do or buy this often do or buy that next. And if you agree with that, we'd recommend you send the following offer, communication, experience, and so on and so forth. But it's always, we are built and designed for and operated by marketers. We're not out to replace marketers, and we don't come close to replacing marketers.
Right.
So we're trying to give them the assets that marketers need to make better decisions faster and more effectively. And, the other thing that we talked briefly about was the Jebbit acquisition. So if you think about first-party customer data, there's like kind of two big buckets. There's the observed data, which is the classic realm of the CDP. Observed data means just following your digital profile. You opened an app, you made a purchase, you went to a website, et cetera, et cetera. And again, pause. If you're in a loyalty program, as a consumer, you want the restaurant to know that you did those things so that you get the requisite points in your account, right?
Right.
So it's not like stalkery at all. It's like, I'm telling you that I made this purchase. Here's the receipt. I did the thing. I want you to know that because there's a quid pro quo, right? There's a value exchange. So that's the observed behavior for the customer. And you can build a really, really good understanding of who Paul Molinari is by just looking at the data that Paul generates.
You're scaring the crap out of me. I mean, you don't want to see that.
Let's just keep it about restaurants for now. And
yeah, let's keep it about
restaurants. Pan out and see anything more about Paul's life, because that would be a whole different podcast that we probably don't want to get into in this session. No. So the observed data is what I just described. It's all the things that the consumer does with the company in a fully compliant, validated way by both parties. But declared data is what the customer voluntarily tells you about themselves. And that's where Jebbit comes in. Like, what's your favorite burger? What's your favorite color? What's your favorite location? What's your favorite this? What's your favorite that? If you could take anybody to any, blah, 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 like.
All right, let's get into Jebbit a little bit. All right,
yeah.
Here's something that looks like Jebbit did for McDonald's.
Yep.
All right, so this is this is something that is then delivered how?
Could be delivered in owned assets, like an app or on web. It could be delivered through paid assets, like Pinterest, as an example.
What do we got?
Right.
Here?
So these kinds of executions, and they're just fun little ways to gather information without boring or insulting the customer.
Okay.
Just fun little gamified interactions.
Collectible would you want to make a comeback? Oh, okay. I'm sick of this. I like this. I've always loved the polar bear.
Same.
Oh, and look at me. I'm like so many others.
This is one example where you were in the norm.
Oh, wild. So you're collecting you're sharing videos with me, all of this stuff. I mean, I can order now. I can put a call to action in. And if I want to go return to these kitchens, what else do we have in here?
Fun little experiences that you can just learn a little bit about the company, and the company can learn a little bit about you in a very fair, open, honest, direct, but engaging fair value exchange.
All right. Who doesn't love the donkey? I want the donkey glass.
Donkey.
Dude, I swear I am knocking it out of the park. All right. Pretty cool stuff. Jebbit. They create these little experiences to help collect and learn more about the customers. And then you can use this data based on how they vote, how they input to feed into the profile that feeds the algorithm.
Yes. And by the way,
the algorithm that gets even smarter about the types of offers that it delivers.
Exactly. And in some cases, let's say that the customer was a loyalty member, they might have earned points for playing around with the experience. And so they want to play with it, and it earns them points. It's entertaining and everybody wins. We're not curing cancer here, but we're just trying to give people a few minutes of light enjoyment and interaction and achieving a business end for the company and giving the customer a real benefit too.
This is great stuff. All right, let's take a break there. When we come back, I've got two critical questions for Patrick. So let's take a quick break and we'll be back in two shakes. And we're back with my good friend, Patrick Reynolds, the CMO of BlueConic, and he is schooling us big time today about CDP and what it all means. And frankly, how restaurant brands can benefit. One of the things that we didn't even get into was how larger B2B companies might be able to use CDPs as well as they hunt for business, but understanding that a CDP is traditionally more of a consumer type of strategy and tactic. All right, Patrick, I got a couple of questions for you, but before we get into the hard hitting stuff, this is something that you and I have differed on for a while. So, and I'm going to create, this is introducing to the audience a new segment that I'm going to call Who Would You Rather?
Okay. I'm a little nervous, but let's do it.
All right. Who'd you rather? Jimmy Page or Tony Iommi?
Oh, listen, this old thing, look, you're just wrong about it. Okay. Listen, Tony Iommi all day long.
No.
The dude is the heaviest riff maker of all time. And he's not talking about druids and lollipops and double neck guitars. The fucker doesn't even have tips of his finger. That's where you get to, it's like the dude, come on.
Dude, listen, man, I love Iommi. He's the godfather of heavy metal. I get it. I mean, who does? I love the metal. I love the metal.
Yep.
I love Ozzy. I love Sabbath. And the man can riff. I'll
riff.
give him his due. But when it comes down to it, when it comes down to who'd you rather, I mean, Jimmy Page. Jimmy Page well, and I'll get this is the key difference.
Yes.
Jimmy Page can riff with Iommi. I mean, I think you would give him a check in each column.
Yep.
And I would actually give the check to the check mark to Iommi in terms of heavier, almost, into the darker stuff.
Yes.
But where Page blooms, it's hard rock, it's folk.
Yep.
It's cultural.
Acoustic.
It's world music. I mean, he's everything. Right. So I think the diversity of Page, from songs like Thank You to, When the Levee Breaks,
Listen, he doesn't suck. Don't get me wrong. See, what I love about Iommi, though, and what I love about Sabbath generally, and I have to say, in fairness, Sabbath also strayed into some really god-awful, Wiccan kind of nonsensical, goofy stuff, right? So they both did. I just think that Zeppelin did a little bit more of that. But what I respect about Iommi is very similar to what I love about AC/DC, and that there is like 2 degrees of separation between every single AC/DC song. They are almost
might only be one,
maybe one. I'm being generous, right? The spread is like the breadth of a hair, whereas there's enormous range. With Zeppelin, and sometimes that range goes into areas I find really cloying and goofy. But listen, you can't go wrong with either one.
No, well, listen, Sabbath is all about Sabbath is those minor chords, those really minor sevens, like the weird dissonant, the dissonant tone they'll put in, like just to send you back a little bit, and AC/DC, by the way, for the kids out there, it's DAG, 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 a million different times and a million different variations, and AC/DC.
You just learned the catalog.
But still, masters. All right, good. I love this segment. We're bringing it forward to the next one. Thank you for kicking it off properly, my friend. All right, but let's go into the second segment that is more traditional with Morning Sam, Morning Ralph, and that is hate to tell you, but Now, this is hate to tell you, but is your opportunity, Mr. Reynolds, to bust a myth, to right a wrong, to correct a misconception out there
Okay.
in your neck of the woods. Not necessarily Buffalo, because there are tons of misconceptions and all sorts of fantasies happening around what the fuck is going on in Buffalo.
We are the
But
Tony Iommi of cities.
you really are the Tony. I mean, it's dark. But let's look at CDPs. Bust a myth for me about these things.
Well, I think people at a distance sometimes think that they're sort of a passive tool. They're a thing that you collect data into, and you assign profiles, and it's a little bit like a collection tool. And that's not actually true. That's partially true, of course, but really when CDPs get all the way to bright and the marketer is feeling the real power of it, it's when they're using it. It's not something that you're not collecting data, you're putting data to use to make the jobs that you have to do better, faster, smarter, higher ROI, right? So the more customer data you have, the greater your customer understanding. The greater your customer understanding, the more intelligently you'll be able to create really relevant experiences for that customer, right? Because you know more about them. The more relevant the experience is to the consumer, the more that experience is going to resonate, right? The more you can string together a series of resonant experiences for a lot of customers, you know how very high ROI, or sometimes we think of it as ROD, which is return on data, that makes your business hum. So it's not something to be collected customer data. It's something to be applied to win new customers, to engage your existing customers, to sell specific products to specific people at specific times, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
I love it. So CDP, I love that explanation. Okay. CDP is not collection, it's application.
Correct.
Right. So
it is the fuel, Paul. So
yes.
you're in the 70s, 80s, 90s, aughts, the whole industry ran on dirty fossil fuel data of third-party data and cookies. It was all kind of shit, and it was sometimes gathered very sketchily and so on and so forth. This revolution that's going on with first-party customer data, not just with BlueConic, but across the industry, right? Across all industries, candidly, is analogous to going green or running on electric, EVs as opposed to diesel. It's taking data that the customer has given you voluntarily in good faith, and you are applying that back to create experiences that customer will benefit from.
I love it. I love it. This has been absolutely amazing. CDPs are in fact the secret sauce, right, for enterprise restaurant brands looking to turn data into action. That's the key. And Patrick, naturally, of course, you've just given everybody a masterclass on how to make that happen. So, but I knew that. I knew that coming in. I knew, the teacher is in session. So this is awesome.
I appreciate it.
Well, hey man, anytime. I'm going to have you on again, and we'll talk more about. I think maybe we should do a little Eddie Van Halen versus. No, you know what?
You were not going to say Yngwie Malmsteen, were you?
No.
Okay. Because
I think reality is that we probably see eye to eye on most of these things.
Okay.
Except for the Iommi page thing, but whatever. All right. So tell us, how can we find you? How can people connect with you, Patrick, to learn more about CDPs and how BlueConic can help them? Go to BlueConic, simply BlueConic.com, CONIC.
Correct. BlueConic.com. You can follow us on LinkedIn, for example. You can reach out to me directly at patrick.reynolds@blueconic.com. You can connect with me on LinkedIn or any of the other sort of channels, and I'd be happy to talk more about this with you. And I should tell you that in addition to you and I going back a long ways, which we do, I go back a long ways working with restaurants, specifically QSR too, but also some fast casuals and others. And
if I'm not mistaken, weren't you at Hill when they did the McDonald's "I'm Loving It" campaign? Was that you
No, I
guys?
was at DDB for a couple
CDP.
of McDonald's global campaigns, and I was at Hill Holiday in Boston for several Dunkin' Donuts campaigns
Yes.
and a few other things mixed in as well. So I love working with QSRs because I just think it's a really fun space, and I kind of cut my teeth there, and I love talking about it still.
Beautiful. Fantastic. Great episode, buddy. We'll catch up soon. Hey, everybody. Subscribe to Morning Sam, Morning Ralph. Find it on YouTube. Find it on Spotify. Find us on iHeart. Wherever the hell you get your podcast fix, you'll be able to find us. I'll have guests like Patrick. We're booked almost through the end of January with really smart, fascinating people that are helping our industry progress. Patrick, my friend, I love you, man. We'll talk soon.
Been a pleasure. I really appreciate it.
All right, brother. Be good.